Briefly, once again, I remain my humble self, Francis. My friends call me Ed Black, which is a name that was drafted out of a conversation back then in my secondary school days when we were treating a topic in Hausa language called Bakake Hausawa, where my friends started to call me Becky and the rest, which became, and I later adopted it as a name. I spoke earlier about parental care and how parents misunderstood the love and affection they have for their children. And instead of giving them the best they can, they end up reprogramming and projecting their children to become nuisance to themselves and even the general public. And I have been able to understand some of this narrative or some of these issues because of looking back to who I was and based on the experience that life taught me. Because life has dealt with me to the extent that I was broken, completely shattered. It took the grace of God to actually come back from who I was to who I am now. And as a result of that, I have sworn to myself and my creator that I will do as much as possible what needs to be done in my own little capacity, not as a professional or not as an authority in understanding, but based on the little experience that life has taught me and God has helped me to go through and understand. I always pray to be able to find a balanced understanding or an area of where I can project my experience as a voice to the general public. It took me years of thinking, reflection, and pondering on issues that took control of my entire life back then. And after sleepless nights of thinking and reflecting, praying to God for purpose and direction to life, praying to God to give me a sense of meaning in life, I was able to understand that I can actually start a communicative conversation or a kind of advocacy for understanding of information. Because I got to understand that what was my problem or what affected me or what led me to becoming who I was as a result of wrong understanding of what information that were given to me were meant for or were intended for, which made me uh, drifted from the path I was raised from, and I ended up doing things that were not actually good for my own self, good for the people around me, good for the society I found myself because of wrong programming. Because it's an illusion that sometimes we feel is not going to cut up with us, but it eventually we always do when we are not actually blended enough to understand what life is all about. Because I used to think when I was growing up as a teenager that I understand what life was all about, that I understand who I am and what I am supposed to, who I am supposed to be, or what I'm supposed to do. To the extent my father, the man I respect in all ramifications, my mentor, my guide, my spiritual father in every aspect, Reverend Yusuf Haudu, a man with understanding beyond limits. Then we can sit with my father and relate like friends, father to father, but you see us as if we are friends because he's free to an extent among with his children. So my father will always tell me that Francis, be careful with the kind of friends you keep. Because I see the level at which you parade yourself around friends, it will not help you. Because friends will surely affect your growth. I will tell my father that it is who wants to be influenced that will be influenced. But the kind of mindset I have and that I believe I had, I can never be influenced by any friend. But that was just an illusion I was having in my head, that I think I understand everything about life. Little do I know that life itself is built to actually shape you to become who you're supposed to be, or shape you away from who you're supposed to be, based on the information in circulation by those who think they understood life. But little do they even know that they are even ignorant of the life they think they know. Because it is not the abundance of information you have in your mind, or you have stored in your heart, in your subconscious mind, that makes you a balanced, understanding person in life. Because you can actually be moving with treasures of information in your mind. But the question is, are those information in alignment with the principles of life, the original principle of design that the original creator of life planted or build this information to be, which lead to the issue of understanding. So I got to understand that information without understanding them, or knowledge without actually the understanding of that knowledge, to actually apply it, the application of this information, which is we can call wisdom, is actually what will blend and mold you to become who you are meant to be. If not, you will drift away completely from the path that was set for you, in the name of feeling you have the understanding, or you are rooted in understanding. Because I was actually a victim of that I believed for long, lost for years. I thought I was never going to have the opportunity to live among human beings again, because I went through hell before coming back to normal. There were times I will be lost completely for hours, days, months, wallowing in misery of illusion that I couldn't understand, that I couldn't fathom what was happening. It was a dilemma to me completely, because my parents at that time, we stay up at night praying, kneeling down on their knees day and night, praying for God to actually help their son to come back to the person they wished and prayed for. But I was never even understanding or even paying attention to anybody until the moment I began to question my existence, question why and how I became who I was. That was when prayer, that is when intentional prayer go, springed up in my mind. That was when I began to learn how to pray intentionally for what I wanted. And as God will have it, because God never abandons anybody, except you just feel not to come to Him because of the will He has given you to either choose to come to Him or choose against Him. But at that moment, I choose to come close to God. And when I chose to come close to God, God directed and helped me to understand the path which I was supposed to follow. Through reading of my manual, I call it manual, which is the Bible. It depends on your faith as a human being. The books you read to help you become who you are actually are where you believe or your faith comes from. But mine was from the documents, a documented information called the Bible. I'll read it, I'll make research online and go through information that I feel we are right aligning with the human principles of life. And as God will have it, gradually I was able to come out of my illusion and become a sound and healthy mind that can actually speak with understanding. And that understanding is the reason why I felt it will be a more deeper lost from my experience to just go unused or utilized, which is what led to a book I wrote, even though I have not yet published. It's still on process, which is called I titled it My Addiction Story. And then subsequently I did one again, which is called it is called The Night Watcher. Why it's called the night watcher is that I grew up as a teenager, not actually enjoying the pattern of sleep every human being gets. Because if I sleep, let's say I sleep around 10, 11, before 12, 12:30, I will see myself waking up. And I will lie down in the bed without getting sleep. No matter how I do struggle, I will only be rolling in the bed. Sleep will not come. I will long for sleep, but sleep will not come. And then I will come to the sitting room to watch television. Then AIT used to play midnight movie. And then sometimes if I'm not lucky, my father will come and see me watching movie in the sitting room while others are sleeping. He will send me back to the room to go and sleep. Then I will be angry at my father, angry at myself, angry at even God. Because I didn't understand why a normal human being will not sleep complete night. But I didn't understand it until later, after the time of my drug abuse, substance abuse. I didn't notice it again. I could sleep all through the night without even waking up. Even sometimes while in school, I will see myself falling asleep or dozing up sometimes in class because of the rate at which nicotine and other substances were already stored in my mindset or in my body bloodstreams. So, but after my self-realization and discovery, and then stop drugs, it wasn't easy. It was something that it is a devastating issue when you are trying to leave drugs because something another topic we're going to dive into though as stand permit by God's grace. But it wasn't easy coming out. But when I was able to leave drugs completely, I then went back to my sleeping pattern again. And those sleeping patterns were the moment I use at night to study, to read, to pray to God. And which is why I titled that book The Night Watcher. Because my parents used to stay at night praying and watching over me, praying to God to watch over me. But this time around, I became the one staying up at night praying to God myself. So I titled that one The Night Watcher. And I believe by God's grace, as we continue, as you comment, as you like, as you share your own thoughts by commenting, I will be able to see what other people are also seeing or understand from other people's view and perspective, and then be able to think of way to build more information that will become in a manuscript or a book format that people can actually read to understand what the general society, the general human society is going through. Because if you don't share your thoughts, nobody will understand what you went through or see you from the experience you have or you had for him to use this information to become a better version of himself. Because every person, every individual human being is a potential great man, but lack of understanding, distorted information, and wrong programming makes us become the kind of human beings we turn out to be. So let's continue to pray, study, write information, question information. Let's not just receive information without actually understanding them. Let's question the information that flow that comes to us so that we can be able to profile a better way of living for ourselves. Let's continue to engage together. Comment, like, and share so that we can actually grow and build ourselves together. Stay tuned. I remember my humble self, Francis.